Welcome to the week one go-to session. So this is the first of four sessions we're going to be having this month. They'll be every week at 7 p.m. on Tuesdays. So thanks to those of you who are here for the first session. Let me begin with some bureaucratic stuff. Well, actually, first, welcome to English. Yay! I look forward to working with each of you all month. This class is very much a sprint, more than a marathon. So 4 weeks might sound like a long time, but wow, do they go through. We'll get through these weeks quickly. Um, as you can see, I just have our course up here. Um, the people who are present, are we all signed up for things? Obviously, you signed up for the lecture because you're here. Everybody all good with mcgrawhill and turnitin.com? Yes? Okay, great. I do want to spend some time over at McGraw-Hill. Okay, so actually, let me go over there now. Um, let's see, McGraw-Hill. Because I want to show, well, I want to show how things look, and I also want to explain the Achieve modules. Okay, so this is how, let me show how things look on the student's end of things. Okay, so from the student's viewpoint, you probably see something like this. Okay, and you can see it's all organized really cleanly, so you never actually have to go into the book itself because the reading selections from the book already organized for you. Okay, so you have, yeah, readings due every week. So week one, okay, 32 pages. That sounds like a lot, but it's not really, because if I click begin, you'll see that the readings are all pretty short. Okay, for example, there are pictures. You always can ignore what's in green. Sometimes they'll have little activities or thought questions or suggested writing prompts, but you never have to do that. You literally just have to read the text, okay? Um, and then here you can click the arrows to get to the next page. You can see there's a big picture of a smartphone. So the readings aren't as long as they appear. Okay, so there's like 3 pages already that's done. The readings are important because for every week you have this journal response here. And let me go into the activity itself. Okay, so I've highlighted what's important. Using quotes or concepts from the reading as well as the lecture. So the lecture you're watching right now. And then there's some other stuff. But I mean, really, the important stuff is here. Okay. I treat these journals like informal quizzes. I just want to see evidence that you did the readings and watched this lecture. And this is why I recommend writing 2 paragraphs, one that summarizes the reading, one that summarizes the lecture. Actually, let me see if I can real quickly bring up an example from just this past month. So that's the current classes. Let's go to the past. Let's go into this class. And everybody close your eyes because you're probably not supposed to see other people's grades. But let me just go in quickly. Okay, here's someone who got 100. Okay, look. Here's his paragraph on the reading. Here's his paragraph on the lecture. And there's my feedback, right? So I did give him some evidence that the information could be a bit more specific from the lecture. Okay. But yeah, this is what you're doing. A summary of the reading and the lecture. Let's see. Chelsea, she always had great. Okay. She probably wrote a bit more than the average student does. But again, I just need to come away with proof that, yes, you've done the readings. Yes, you've done the lecture. Watch the lecture. Now, here's the thing. I'm okay. Be careful when I say this, though. I'm okay with occasional skimming. It doesn't mean you skim everything. It just means that you are reading for gist. Okay, I want you to come away with like the important information in the reading. The readings and the lectures are both important, but to be honest, the lectures are more important because without the lectures, you really can't do well on the major assignments. Because the major assignments, even though they seem sometimes on the surface like they're simple, like in the second half of this lecture, we'll talk about the first assignment due this Sunday, which is a worksheet. And yeah, it seems pretty simple. Like, oh, it's a worksheet. There are 10 questions. I just have to answer 10 questions. But it's not that simple. So these lectures are incredibly helpful, I think. The students who watch the lectures have almost zero problems. They pass with flying colors, usually with an A or a B in the class. Lots of A's. But when students don't watch the lectures, yeah, that's when they stumble. Because then they end up guessing. They try to complete assignments, and yeah, they guess at what needs to be done instead of truly doing what needs to be done. So the fact that the 6 of you who are here, that's a good sign. Okay, so keep doing that. Now, for those who can't attend live, it's not an issue at all if you have to watch the recording. Every lecture is recorded and placed in the archives area. Okay, so every week you have this 1.2, 2.2 called Lecture Archive and Required Reading. This is where the video of the lecture will be found. Actually, I don't even think this activity needs to list required reading because you can just go to McGraw-Hill and the reading's already organized for you, but it's also listed there if you need to. So here, let me get out of this, if I can figure out how. Actually, I'll just X out of it. Okay, so there's the readings, organized by week. Easy peasy. You also have every week, for the first 3 weeks at least, in week 4 it disappears, what are called these achieve modules. Joshua says, even though I read everything posted, I wanted to wait to be 100% sure what I was doing. Yeah, that's good, Joshua. There is a lot of information to read through here, but you're going to get extra things from the lectures, okay? Especially when it comes to the major assignments that are due every Sunday. Yeah, those of you who are here. Anthony says he felt a little bit overwhelmed with so many things to register for. Yeah, there's a lot to register for, but once you get registered, you'll see it's very, very simple. Like, you're here for the lecture, that's easy. McGraw-Hill, you just go there for the readings and to complete these interactive modules, which I'm going to show in real time in just a second, and turn it in. That's just where you hand stuff in. Okay. Plus, I like Turnitin's tools. Not only because it catches plagiarism, but I actually like its individual commenting tools. So anyway, you have these interactive modules, one for each of the first 3 weeks. As you can see, they're also neatly organized. So for this week, and it's due, I believe, on Friday, you'll do this first one. So I'm going to click Begin, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. Okay, so it takes a couple seconds to come up, so that will give me a chance to take a sip from my coffee. Okay. For some reason, it always sends me to the help section, but the assignment is up here. And you can choose a study schedule, like you could set up if you want to work on it once a week, 3 times a week, for how long, or you can just dive right into it and start working on it. And because I've started this in the past, it doesn't give me that option. So I'm going to go right in. The woman's talking. I'll have her be quiet. Click OK. And you can see you can answer 4 questions in a row, complete it by topic, or just jump in and start the assignment. So I'll do that. You have this progress bar down here, and when you get to 100%, you're done. I mean, you could stop earlier. You can stop at 78%, but then you'd get a 78 for the assignment. Okay, so please take advantage of this. This is an easy assignment, easy 100 points. Okay, so let's see if I can answer some of these. Use the drop-down box to choose the correct end punctuation for this exclamatory sentence. There's a bear in the backyard. Okay, it kind of hints at the answer with this exclamatory sentence, so I'm going to assume exclamation mark, or excuse me, exclamation point. Right, and you can say how sure you are of the answer. I think so. Then click Submit. Correct, yay! And you can see the bar moves to 2%. Choose a sentence that correctly uses an apostrophe to show possession. Click the answer you think is right. From the time she was 5 years old, Anne's goal. No, that's not right. That one looks good. This one's not correct because it doesn't have. So I already know. It's this one. I know it. Correct. By the way, here, let me do something real quick. I'm sorry. I jump around a lot. It's going to drive you crazy week after week. But it's real simple. When to use an apostrophe to show possession. So, for example, my car's tire needs changing. Okay, so there's only one car. My car's tires, need changing. Here there are 2 cars. Okay, real simple. Apostrophe S, 1. Make the word plural with an S plus an apostrophe, 2. Okay, for people's names, just John's car is in the garage. Okay. If someone's name ends in S, like Chris, you have your choice. You can put S apostrophe, Chris's car is in the garage. Or you can do this. So it's your choice, okay? Words that are already plural, like children, you would do this, not this. Even though this seems logical, right? Because it's plural, just like here, plural, S apostrophe. But since the word is already plural, no, just put an apostrophe S, such as in children's clothes or people's houses. Okay. But if you can somehow just memorize this, okay, apostrophe S, 1, S apostrophe 2, and then try to remember the exceptions if you can. Also, real quickly, it's IT apostrophe S is a contraction for it is. It's is for everything else. So if you're ever confused and you type IT apostrophe S, put in the words it is. If it doesn't work, it doesn't fit. There is no okay, this word does not exist. It seems like it's logical, right? Still have the strike through on. Everything needs to be put in its place. Okay, we know it's not IT apostrophe S because that one makes sense. Everything needs to be put in it is place. No, but sometimes students are tempted to do this, and it seems logical, right? Because it kind of sounds possessive. Its place, like its tire, the car's tire, right? But no, it's okay. So if you can somehow remember that, awesome. Thought I'd go over that because I see that constantly. Students just guessing, and I get it. It's difficult to remember, but if you can remember those quick things, read the sentence fragment. Which revisions correct the fragment? Collect all that apply. Check all that apply. So a fragment is an incomplete sentence. Okay, so to avoid getting a citation, that's incomplete. Because if someone just came up to you on the street and said, to avoid getting a citation, you would stare at them thinking, okay, I need more information. So that's a fragment. To avoid getting a citation, Jim slowing down to avoid, no. Jim try. Okay, so this is the only one that makes sense, right? All these sound funny. This one takes this fragment and turns it into a complete sentence. To avoid getting a citation, Jim slowed down. But so does this one, okay? This one works too. Jim tried to avoid getting a citation. Okay. Sometimes the questions are awkward. You don't quite know what they're asking for. But here they're asking which two answers here make sense when you read them out loud. Which ones are now complete sentences? I know it. I'm correct. I'm 6% complete. And that's all I'm going to do because I'm giving you all the answers. So you just have to jump in and now do that on your own. But as you can see, the journal responses, those informal quizzes where you just have to summarize the readings in the lecture, that's worth 5%. Those achieve modules are worth 5%. And really, if you add up like those gimme points, because those are assignments you should be getting 100s on, professionalism is a month-long grade, we're 10%. But really, if you hand in your work all the time and don't do anything egregious, like curse me out or curse out one of your classmates, that should be 100% that's in your pocket. Something like 40 or 45% of the class could easily be 100 or close to it. So take advantage of those easy points, okay? Good, we've talked about McGraw-Hill, so let's start talking about what we're doing in this class. So I'll probably get away from this, as I often do, but let's start with the slides for today. Welcome to week 1. This material can be found, we do have a syllabus, course resources, etc. Most of this can be found under your About tab, which I think is on the left side of your screen if you're a student. Let me take a sip from my coffee. The office hours are located in that activity. I forget what it's called, but it's basically where I introduce myself. There's a video, but there's my office hours as well. We have a writing center. You can schedule appointments. We do have one-on-one face-to-face meetings for campus students, but most students use the online feature, which uses the same technology we're using now, which is GoToTraining. You do have to set up appointments 24 hours in advance, and there are no appointments over the weekend. So basically, you have to get an appointment set up before Thursday afternoon finishes to get an appointment, for example, on Friday. And it's real simple. It's just writing center, one word, at fullsail.com. Writing center at fullsail.com. This information is repeated in some of the materials we have, but take advantage of that if you need. Here's a little slide about why do you have to take this class. We have a quotation you can read and a statistic. I don't really have to say much about this. I think people know the importance of writing and speaking. I always say, show me a person who's very successful who cannot write or speak. It doesn't really happen. I don't care if you're a CEO or if you're an actor or if you're a musician, you're a singer, right? I mean, name like famous people. Find me a famous person who cannot write, like who cannot write his name in the ground with a stick or cannot speak at all. That's not coincidence, right? And I think people know this, especially here at Full Sail, because we have so many programs that are like not traditional that you would find at another four-year school, right? So we have like digital cinematography, we have recording arts, music production, graphic design, mobile app design, game design, right? Game art, all this kind of stuff. And so sure, I occasionally get students who ask this very question: why do I have to take this class? Why do I have to take English? I chose Full Sail because it's not that type of school. But I think it's kind of like a bogus question. I mean, if they're asking that question, it's usually because at some point in their past, they had a bad experience. They had a teacher that they hated. They had a teacher that made them stupid. They had a class that made them stupid. And that's the baggage they're bringing forward into this class. They don't really question this stuff, the stuff that's hinted at in the quotation and the statistics. I think you'd be pretty hard-pressed to find someone who will make an argument against being able to write well or being able to speak well, right? Because even people who, like, let's say, don't have those skills perfectly polished, still, they sense that it's important. Like, they do see examples of writing and know that they wish they could write like that, right? Like it's what's something that I'm not terribly skilled at? Like a sport, right? Like I love watching sports, particularly baseball and football. So when I see really talented athletes, yeah, I wish I could do that. But writing isn't like that. Okay, writing is not like a born skill. It's not like you either have it or you don't. Anybody can learn how to write, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Sure, it takes commitment and it takes some time, just like any skill does. But the good news is, yeah, it's not something like you don't have it in your genes or your DNA. It's not something where, I guess I just didn't get the writing skill born in me. No, anybody can make progress. So why not start now? Okay. So what are we going to focus on in this class? Well, the good news is we're going to work towards a single paper. That's it, just one paper. But we're going to take it one step at a time. And the focus of this essay, which is hinted at in the graphic here, will be advertising. So the task for this month is all of you will produce a short ad analysis essay. Okay, you will choose an ad. Sadly, you don't get to choose whatever you want. You have a list of approved ads. Actually, let me go ahead and show that right now. So here's the first major activity. Do this Sunday. Work 10% of your grade. If you go into the activity, which I'm going to do now, this is where the list of ads is found. Okay, so you have 8 to choose from. Now, I'm going to say a couple things right here. First, wait until the end of the lecture to choose an ad, because I think that based on what we cover, maybe that will help you choose an advertisement. Because, yeah, you shouldn't be choosing an ad because, oh, wow, I love McDonald's. Or Apple is a popular one, right? Because lots of people have iPhones and stuff. But the Apple ad is actually maybe a bit more challenging than some of the others. And so, yeah, hold off until the end of the lecture, because you should be choosing an ad not based on how cool you think the company is or how cool you think the ad is. You should be choosing the ad based on how clearly you can see things going on in the ad. Okay, we're going to practice this during this first session. We're going to look at 3 ads and brainstorm together. I can tell you in advance that there are 5 television commercials and 3 print ads. So here, let me open up this print ad right here. So a print ad is, well, it's a print ad. It's like something you'd see online or in a magazine. It doesn't have sound. It doesn't have movement. This is for Chico, manufacturer of baby products. I keep meaning to get rid of this ad because it is the most difficult ad in the bunch. I, I mention that every month and forget to take it down, but it usually scares enough students away for me just to mention that it's the most difficult ad, that most people stay away from it. But yes, in general, print ads are more challenging than commercials. Why? Because on some level with a print ad, you have to be comfortable talking about visual elements, right? In television commercials, because they do have more things going on. Like I said, there's sound, there's movement. Sometimes there are storylines, there are characters. There's just more things to notice. Print ads usually work well for people who are very comfortable with visuals. Maybe you already have an eye for art or graphic design, or you're already somewhat comfortable talking about visual elements. So yeah, hold off until the end of the lecture, until we've gone through the 3 practice ads we're going to look at, and then come back to this list and choose an ad not based, again, on which one you think is coolest, but which one you think you can see the most things going on and will be comfortable talking about. Because yeah, you don't want to get stuck with an ad that you have no idea what to do with. And it happens every month. Like, someone chooses this ad, and then I have to say, why did you choose this ad? It's a print ad, and I already said in week 1, and sometimes they didn't watch the week 1 lecture, but I said during the first lecture, this is like the toughest ad. Why would you choose this? William says typography plays a major key in print ads. Yeah. Like, why is this written in this font? Why this sort of soft cursive? Like, why would you do that? And actually, that's a good segue. Let's stay there, because ultimately, ad analysis is about answering the question why. Okay, and I'm going to repeat this concept all month, but I want you to start thinking about 3s, because you need to be able to spot 3 things that are going on in your chosen ad. And by 3 things, I know things is a very vague word. 3 aspects, 3 elements, 3 design strategies. In other words, ad agencies are paid a lot of money, millions of dollars, to come up with ads. So no choice that they make is accidental. So I want you to be able to spot 3 choices that those ads creators have made, because those 3 choices are going to become the heart of your essay. Later on in this lecture, we'll talk about thesis statements, but the thesis statements, which is like the driving sentence for your entire paper, that's where you're going to list these 3 things. You don't have access to it yet, but I actually did all the assignments for this class because I wanted to see what it was like. Here, I'll get rid of this. To do the assignments that I assign. So, and actually, I'll hold off for showing this too much of this, because we're going to actually look at a sample ad based on this. But yeah, I wrote a paper based on a Jeep ad. Okay, so we'll come back to this, because I don't want to spill the beans on that Jeep ad. But okay, I've already talked about this. Ad analysis, this is what we're focusing on this month, right? How do advertisers persuade viewers? I guess I should briefly talk about this. So the class is set up so that each week represents a different stage in what we call the writing process, right? So brainstorming, researching. We're here, week 1, brainstorming. Next week, we're going to be here, research. Yeah, you'll have to do a little bit of research for this paper. We'll also be here in week 2, organizing. Week 3 will be here, where you write a draft of your essay. And then week 4, you'll get feedback, not only from me, but from 2 of your classmates during a peer review activity. And you'll revise. And this structure is pretty basic. Probably you've been introduced to it before. Even if you haven't, it's a pretty typical process that just about anybody goes through, whether you're writing a paper or creating a piece of art or a piece of music. Okay, maybe there's not research investigation always, but there is this kind of coming up with ideas, organizing them, thinking them through, putting them down in a draft, and then polishing, okay, and then repeating the steps as needed. So every step, every week in this class is devoted to a separate stage in this process, as you can see here. Okay. Okay, we're going to talk about this ad in a second, but I think the slide I wanted to show is supposed to come before this. Okay, so remember, I said you need to be able to spot 3 things in your chosen ad. It might be helpful to think about those 3 things as falling into 2 general categories, like these 2 umbrella categories. First are formal qualities. Another word for formal would be technical. So these are issues like color, sound, music, camera work, okay? Nuts and bolts stuff. Purely technical issues like typography, I could have put here. That's a formal quality. Then there are thematic qualities. Okay, these are the kind of softer, non-technical things like theme, motif, character, story. Okay, so yeah, like technical stuff, non-technical stuff. So now let me go back. Hold on. Okay, so here's an ad for Jeep. Now you don't see both halves of the ad at the same time. This just shows you the visual trick. You only see what's on the left. And I don't know if you can see that super clearly, but it says Jeep, see whatever you want to see. Right side up and upside down. And you can see the trick is it's a reversible image. Because looked at one way, it looks like a giraffe's head. Looked at another way, it's a penguin, a standing penguin. But yeah, you only see what's on the left. Okay. Now, here, we're going to do a little bit of brainstorming. So even though you're not comfortable at all, maybe, with ad analysis, even though you're not sure what maybe you could possibly say about an ad, I'm still going to ask you to shout things out. Like, this is a pretty spare ad, but already, like, what have the ads creators decided to do? Or what are some things that stand out? Remember, we got to identify 3 things. So if this were one of the approved ads, and it's not because we're discussing it now, what are 3 things we could talk about here? And don't worry about having explanation yet. Don't worry about being able to answer that question, why. Just what are things that stand out? William says something about KISS principle. What is that? Keep it simple? Stupid? Okay, yeah, there's... Oh, good. We're getting lots of stuff. Sebastian says background. Brittany says animals. Okay, let's take those one at a time, and I'll get back to the KISS thing too. But let's start with background and color, because I'll argue that that is an important aspect, right? It's got this beige, this mauve, this khaki type color, and even the quality of the background, right? It's this fabric, textile-like thing, right? It looks kind of woven. But why would you do that? Because remember, ad analysis has to answer the question why. Why not just make the background, I don't know, plain white, or I don't know, a pretty light blue or gray? Why this sandy, beige, fabricy background? Anybody want to give that a stab? Joshua says texture makes the image have depth. Okay. Yeah, there might be something to that. Sebastian says maybe to be vintage. Okay, maybe I could see that. I mean, I guess it's vintage in a way. Any other ideas? I'm not disagreeing with those. Okay, William has a pretty good one there. Appeals to the outdoors, right? Because think of it, what's the stereotypical image we have of Jeep? It's rugged, it's independent, it's an outdoorsy vehicle. It's the kind of vehicle, right, off-roading. It's the kind of vehicle you might jump in if you were looking to find giraffes in Africa or penguins in Antarctica, right? You wouldn't jump into a Honda Civic. Jeep is that, yeah, I mean, we still see it with the military too, but stereotypically it's a vehicle for safaris. It's a vehicle for off-roading. It's a vehicle for adventure. Okay? Safari, right, good. Yeah, so this background, which is, again, think about it. It reminds you of like like burlap or canvas, right? Like canvas tent, or the color is khaki, so like khaki clothing. Like it has that kind of color that is reminiscent, yeah, of like a Jeep top, right? It reminds you of canvas Jeep tops or canvas tents or canvas clothing, or just that kind of sandy color that we associate with dust and dirt and debris and sand. Does this make sense, people? Right? Does anybody want to push back that I'm reading too much into it? I think that's a pretty good explanation. And I think that's what people were trying to get at when they were saying things like vintage, or like I get why people would maybe lead to those colors, but I think it's something more specific than vintage. Or if it's vintage connected to like, yeah, like classic safari, right? Like this background and color probably doesn't work with like a Lexus ad or a Toyota ad, but it does with Jeep. Yeah, as Joshua says, it leads the imagination to think of the outdoors, right? So, who was it? Brittany also said animals, right? And I think we're kind of getting to the crux of this. Like, why does it have reversible animal imagery? Why doesn't it have, I don't know, like Transformers, I can't even think of an image, but it's some sort of thing, some sort of non-animal image in the middle that looked at one way looks like one thing, looked at another way looks like another. Again, it's because of the connection to Jeep, right? Jeep is the vehicle that we associate with. It's a stereotype, of course, because the vast majority of people who are buying Jeeps are not buying them to go on safaris. They're not going on adventures unless you consider picking up the kids and hauling groceries to be an adventure, which it can be, but that's definitely more suburban than Saharan. But yes, the classic sort of stereotypical image of Jeep is that it's for off-roading and adventure and independence. And so everything about this ad is kind of connecting to that. You can see it in its background color choice. You can see it in its choice of animal imagery. So we've already got two things we could focus on, right? Like its background and color choice, its decision to use animal imagery, and we could focus on one more thing. We'd have to figure out what that one thing is, but I can show you. So here's my completed essay. You won't see this until week 3, though you'll see it in outline form in week 2. But yeah, I decided to do all the assignments that I asked students to do. So you're not writing a paper yet in week 1. You're actually going to just fill out a brainstorming worksheet. But you can see here's a final product that we're working toward. And we're going to define this later, but here's my thesis, okay? So I've highlighted it already, actually. Here are my 3 things. Remember? Think 3. Through the use of simple color. 1, so that beige background color, that khaki background. Playful imagery. 2, so the animal imagery. And 3, a double meaning tagline that reinforces themes. So I decided to talk about its tagline as the 3rd element. The Jeep See Whatever You Want to See ad appeals to the inner adventure inside everyone to unlock a hidden enthusiasm for Jeep. And this is what you're going to be working on this week, because one of the most important questions on the worksheets, the brainstorming worksheet that I haven't yet even shown you, is that, yes, you'll have to come up with a thesis where you will identify the 3 things that you have spotted in your chosen ad, whether it's the Apple ad or the Allstate ad or the Call of Duty ad or the Stork ad, if anybody's brave enough to choose that one, the Chico baby product ad. But you'll have to come up with a statement similar to this. Because once you have your 3 things, then the entire essay in week 3 comes together. Because, yeah, you'll have an introduction, a general introduction that sets things up, and then you have your 3 talking points. So here's a paragraph entirely about the ad's use of color. And you can see I get into everything we've just talked about. The ad's beige background brings to mind fabric and textiles, burlap sack, a tawny canvas tent, khaki clothing. Color might also suggest environments, dusty paths, windswept dunes, even the debris kicked up in a Jeep wheel's wake. Then I explain, the color choice is no accident, for it reinforces Jeep's outdoorsy image. Then I found a couple of nifty quotations about earth tones like beige. Okay. And then here's my paragraph about my 2nd point, the ad's imagery, where I also explain why the ad is using this vintage drawn. Actually, I did find a nifty quote about that I think uses the word vintage. When rotated, each of the vintage drawn animals becomes another species. Okay, so yeah, vintage isn't incorrect. Um, and finally, here's a paragraph about the ad's tagline. Here's a conclusion. So this is what we're aiming for, okay? So this is why it's so important that you have to be able to choose an ad that you're comfortable discussing and be able to spot three things. So here, let's try another advertisement. And since you guys did so awesome with that last one, how about this one? This is an older ad, as you can probably tell. It's from the early 1970s, but I use it because it has lots of things going on, and also because there are retro style ads that exist today that kind of look like this. But no, this isn't just a retro style ad. This is truly from the early 1970s. So let's show off. Start shouting out things. What are elements we could talk about here? Remember, we got to spot three things. They can be formal things, technical things, or they can be non-technical. And don't worry again about correctness, about having the answer figured out, just what stands out. Sebastian says the tagline. Okay, the tagline is your mother wouldn't like it. What wouldn't your mother like? Joshua says the colors, good. Yeah, they all seem warmer in tone. Good, good, good. And why was that important in this ad? The fact that the colors are warmer. Okay, Anthony says old school, older time frame. Okay, but here's what I would say, like if you presented that as one of your three things that you noticed, I would say, okay, but that's purely descriptive. Okay, so you have to be careful. Ad analysis is not ad summary. It's not literally describing the ad. You have to find three meaningful, interesting things about the ad. Again, we're thinking about design strategies, choices. Like someone made the choice to use these colors, warm colors, the bright oranges, the reds. Okay, and why would you do that? Brittany says the car. Okay, but what about the car? Because again, we have to say something. We can't just say that the ad has a car, or the ad seems like it was made a long time ago, or the ad's tagline is X. We have to explain the choices behind this. Why don't we start with colors? What is it about this ad that these warmer colors, as I think Sebastian described it, these oranges, these reds, why would that be an interesting design choice? Sebastian says the clothes were cool at that time. Okay, but again, we have to push beyond just purely describing what we see. I'll tell you, first of all, that color is important in this ad. So we just talked about why color was important in the Jeep ad, that it reinforces Jeep's outdoorsy image, right? That beige fabric-y quality background. So why am I telling you that color, which has already been mentioned by one of you, is important in this ad? William says incandescent lighting at night enhance the colors at night. Okay, there's part of it there. I think we're talking, again, all around. Don't make this so difficult. I'm not looking for like either 100% literal explanations or like secret symbolic readings. No, no, no. What wouldn't your mother like? What does that tagline mean? Right? Like, who is this ad aimed at, and what would your mother not like? What would your mother not approve of? Because maybe we have to get at what this ad is playing with. Right? So, yeah, right, William. Either the car or the woman, right? Because they're connected. They're front and center. And I do think Brittany just kind of shouted out the car, but I do think that the link being made here between the car and woman are important, right? Because the suggestion is there's something dangerous or naughty. It's not really the case, of course, but again, the stereotypical mother wouldn't approve. Okay, she wouldn't approve of this car, she wouldn't approve of this woman, but that's okay because that's what the ad is appealing to, right? It's clearly aimed at men. Yes, Sebastian, how fast the car is, and by association, how quote unquote fast the woman is. Again, that's probably not at all true, but this is what the ad is playing with. Okay, it's playing with sexual, kind of like double entendres, right? It's clearly aimed at men who do find this car attractive, who do find the woman attractive. The stereotypical mother wouldn't approve of it, but that's what the ad is going for. Okay. Um, and notice how the woman is dressed too, right? She's not the stereotypical mother would approve of a woman who's prim and proper, but this woman is dressed very modernly. She's braless, so she's clearly progressive. Okay, so yeah, the link between the woman and the car is intentional. It's intentional because they're close to each other. They're close. It's intentional because they're front and center. So that's something we could talk about, right? Like the link between the woman and the car, and layout wise, how they're put front and center to establish that connection. Um, Now, because we've talked about this, that's an ad that's playing with sexual things. Now, does it make sense why these colors are appearing? Like these colors are lurid. Maybe lurid is too strong a word. Sensual. Does that make sense? And I mean, I would say that lighting is also important. Like that could be a separate topic. Okay, so color and or lighting. Yeah, good, William. Red invokes passion. So these colors are passionate, sensual colors. That's reinforced by the color and or the lighting as well. And by the way, even the setting, like not only the fact that it's this sort of in between hour, it's either dusk, like about to be evening, so it's a sort of in between world, but also like the literal setting. You can't quite see it because the poster is cut off, but you can see it here. The film that's playing is Last Tango in Paris. Now, I'm a film fan, so I know Last Tango in Paris, but I'm not sure uh, students always do. It is an incredibly sexually frank film. I mean, it was well regarded. It was nominated for Oscars, Best Picture. It's a brilliant film, but even by today's standards, and this film came out in, oh gosh, I want to say like '73. But even by 2018, or excuse me, 2019 standards, the film is incredibly sexually frank. Like it's not like by 1973 standards it was over the top. No, even by today's standards, it received an X rating at the time. It was a rare case of an X-rated film that received rave reviews and was nominated for awards. Today it would probably be NC-17. Okay, but like that's not coincidence, right? That's this woman, this car, this movie. So these are the things I want you to get to start noticing because you have to be able to notice three things. And here we have lots of things we could talk about. We could talk about the link between the woman and the car. We could talk about color. We could talk about lighting. We could talk about overall setting. Okay, there are lots of decisions that are made. So that's the thing you have to focus on, right? You have to spot three choices that the ads creators have made, three deliberate choices. And it has to be more than just pointing things out. Okay, so it has to be more than just there's a woman, or or even something super general like sex sells. Okay, that's too broad. No, I want three very specific things. Let's try one more. Okay, and actually, this link is broken, so let me go ahead and get you the right link. You're gonna have to watch this on your own machine if you can, because YouTube. Um, Diet Coke. It's called Diet Coke Tall, Dark, and Handsome. So let me get you the URL. There we go. I'm going to paste this into the chat, which you have now. If you're watching at home, just do the same thing I did. Go to YouTube, type in Diet Coke Tall, Dark, and Handsome. I'll give you about 15 to 30 seconds. It's a really short ad. And when you're ready, again, just start shouting things out in the chat. We got to identify three things. So, what are three things, interesting things that are going on in this ad? Even if you can't explain them, what are things that stand out to you? Brittany, the music. Okay, good. Music's a big one. Now I'm gonna push you, or not just you, Brittany, but anyone in here, to say, okay, I've already kind of revealed the music is super important. Why? Why that music? Sebastian says a condensation. I mean, yeah, Sebastian, we're gonna. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love people shouting out ideas, but I mean, maybe there's something there. But you have to move beyond just pointing things out. If you can make a case, like lots of soft drink ads will show a glass that has like beads of sweat. They're not really sweat, but you know what I mean. Um, right, but here's the thing, Sebastian. All soft drink ads do that. Show condensation to make the drink look refreshing. You have to spot three specific things about this ad. You see what I mean? So if it's something that applies to any ad, then you know you're being too general. So the music in this ad is specific to this ad. So why this music? Okay, Joshua mentions a bunch of stuff about contrast. I think do you mean throughout the gray background? Like you can notice it a little bit here, the drink against the gray background. You can really notice it here, right? Like choice and color. And Joshua mentions about the music being kind of frisky. Okay, yeah. Like, what's going on here? Or who wants to? I mean, yeah, frisky is a good adjective, but who wants to like put it all together? Why that music? Or how do we describe that music? Frisky's good. In some ways, this is kind of taking a different tack from the last ad, but it's mining similar material. Again, I think lots of times students talk all around it because you guys know what this ad is going for, right? Well, unfortunately, I can't play the music, but so here I say I hate to be the instructor who like explains things or gives away answers or pretends that there is a specific answer. Is this ad just a straightforward soft drink ad? Is it humorous? Sebastian says could be referring to saying like men, like I like my coffee, but like soda. Well, I'm not sure I totally follow that, but I think you're getting at like, okay, the ad is called Tall, Dark, and Handsome. We usually use tall, dark, and handsome to refer to what? Men, right? Stereotypically. A handsome man is supposed to be tall, dark, and handsome. And here it's not a tall, dark, and handsome man. It's a tall, dark, and handsome glass of Coke. And yes, Brittany, the ad is trying to seduce you into drinking Diet Coke. And look at the camera movement. Where do we see this camera movement typically? We see it in films. Ironically, almost always used on women, hardly ever used on men. Yeah, right? As a matter of fact, I don't even know if this film is too old to even mention anymore, but there's a comedy called The Naked Gun. Came out, oh gosh, long time ago, probably more than 30 years ago. Um, yeah, I think the first one came out maybe even in the late 80s. But anyway, Priscilla Presley is the female lead. And when she first appears on screen, there's a camera movement that is almost exactly like this. Except the joke is that as the camera pans up her legs, it keeps going on and on and on, so that her kneecaps like appear twice. That's the joke. That her legs go on forever, because it's such a it's such a known cliche, right? That when the camera wants to scan someone's body, it does this movement. Okay, so clearly this is a humorous ad. It's replacing a person with a tall glass of Diet Coke. And yet the camera movement scans the glass just like it would a person. The music, as Joshua said, he called it frisky. Yeah, I would call it funky, or a send up of what sexy music is supposed to sound like, right? that Waka Waka. Some students have said it reminds them of bad, like music you might see in an adult film, or even if it's not an adult film, right? Any movie that's, especially comedies that try to make fun of sexy scenes, it has that kind of music. Um, yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know if you know this. Diet Coke is almost exclusively aimed at women. Coke Zero is aimed at men. It's supposed to be a product that gets men to drink diet products because they won't touch Diet Coke. So yeah, this is aimed at women. So that's why it's tall, dark, and handsome, right? Reference to a tall, dark, handsome man. Except here it's replacing the man with the glass of Coke. The music reinforces this because it's the send up of what we think of as sexy music. That's not to say that other things that people mentioned are wrong. I do think there's something about the colors used that is interesting, right? Like it uses not only for color contrast, the way the red pops out against this silver background, um, but also like it has that, I don't even know what you call it, like this burnished metal look, brushed metal, not burnished. Kind of like the backs of like iPhones. I don't know if iPhones still have that kind of backing, but like this kind of sleek, ultra sleek look that you usually see like in tech products. Not sure why Coke is doing that. Maybe it's because Coke wants to sell itself as so slimmed down and so lean that even its commercial is lean. Or maybe Coke is trying to build itself as a contemporary 21st century product. And so its styling is very futuristic, um, right? To look like the bottle of Coke, maybe. Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't really look for like symbolic readings or something. It's fine if someone wants to were to focus on color or background decisions, just even literally to make things pop out, whether it's the lettering of Coke or the lettering on the bottle, or to make even the glass stand out. Even those things are fine. But yeah, you got to spot three things, and here we have three things. Music is super important because it lends a sense of humor, and it fits, right? The entire ad is playing with a kind of sexual double entendre. Um, the music, the camera movement, the way it pans the glass like it would a person's body, and even the tagline, okay, or the title, "Tall, Dark, and Handsome," which is a play on, again, these sorts of sexual connotations. So maybe this would be a good segue to talk about the first assignment. So the first assignment is to complete a brainstorming worksheet, which is here. Okay, I've just scrolled down from the 1.5 activity, preparing to write. This is the assignment that's due Sunday. So as you scroll down, you can read all the instructions on your own, but here you have the approved list of ads. So now that we've had this lecture, you should choose an ad where you can spot three things. Okay. And you always, every major assignment comes with examples. So here, if you click here, you get an example of a previous student's effort. And here's the worksheet itself. Okay, so like I said, it seems very simple. Just answer 10 questions, but it's easy to answer some of them incorrectly. Some of the basic things are pretty simple. What is the title of the ad you've chosen? For what company or organization is this ad created? What creative team worked on it? This could require research. Here, she's only answered this, not the other stuff. 3, describe the ad as if you were explaining its visuals and other details to someone who has never seen it before. Sometimes students stop here, so they'll give a pretty good description of the ad, detailed, as if they were describing it to someone who's never seen it, but they don't really do this part, which is, as you're doing that, be sure to identify things that stand out to you. So she mentions a lot of important stuff, everything from the retro-looking font to the camera movement, okay? The music, right? Like the kind of music you might hear in a sex scene in a 1970s movie, because the next prompt asks you to explain why these specific details matter. So if you haven't mentioned interesting things that stand out to you, it's going to be kind of hard to describe why they're important. And here she does, even though it's pretty brief, she does a pretty good job. Everything in the ad reminds me of a sex scene in a movie. The music has a sexy vibe. The words Used to describe the drink, could be used to describe a good-looking man. The camera even moves up the glass as if it might move up a person's body. The ad's message seems to be that Diet Coke is as good as a sexy romantic partner, which I think Brittany mentioned as well. Okay, so that's a pretty, even though it's brief, she does a good job of pretty much nailing it. Okay, and these ideas will be described in more detail when she writes her draft of her essay. I'm not going to read every prompt out loud. Most of them are self-explanatory. I will tell you that 8 and 9. Okay, so 8 says list 3 possible tactics, techniques that you could focus on for your essay. This is just fancy speak for what are the 3 things that you've noticed. So she noticed 3 things. Okay, music, language, so in other words, tall, dark, and handsome. Here she says minimalist approach, but that's not her strongest point, actually. But that's okay. In prompt 9, it says now use those 3 things that you've noticed, those tactics, techniques, that's all that means, to come up with 2 potential thesis statements. Now here I do have to briefly go back to my presentation. So here, let me skip around a bit. We've already talked about all this. Okay. So, okay, thesis. I already showed you a thesis statement. Remember, we took a brief look at the Jeep essay that I've written, and you'll see in another week. But a thesis is like the roadmap for your paper. It sets up everything that's going to be followed. Nobody can move forward until they have a working thesis. So a big part of this first assignment is making sure that you have a thesis. Because if you have a good thesis, then it should be smooth sailing from here on out. So here are 2 thesis examples. Right. So this is the Jeep's thesis. Notice the 3 things through the use of simple color. 1, playful imagery. 2, and a double meaning tagline that reinforces the scene. 3, the see whatever you want to see ad appeals to the inner adventure side everyone to lock a hidden enthusiasm for Jeep. Okay, so there are my 3 points. Here's the Diet Coke thesis. Diet Coke, tall, dark, and handsome ad uses sexually charged language. 1, seductive music. 2, and slow camera movement. 3, to convince sophisticated women to buy into the idea that drinking Diet Coke is as fulfilling as a heteronormative romance. Just fancy speak for a romance between a man and a woman. Okay, so you got to be able to do the same thing. Now, on the worksheet, you have these 2 thesis statements. Here it doesn't show it, but the version that you'll actually use to complete the assignments, it does have the 2 thesis statements we've used in the lecture. Okay, so you have like models to use. Now, the reason why I'd ask you to do 2 thesis statements is because you might notice more than 3 things, but you're unsure which 3 things work best. So if I see 2 thesis statements, I might be able to tell which one's better than the other. I might tell you might need to mix and match between the 2. Or sometimes, yeah, you might get one that's terrific and another one that's not on the right path, which is kind of what happens with this woman's past thesis. So here she's got a strong thesis. Okay, this is the one that ends up matching the one that I just showed in the presentation, right? The Diet Coke ad uses sexy music, cinematography, and suggestive language to blah, blah, blah. But her second thesis isn't a thesis. It just says the Diet Coke ad uses minimalist design. Yeah, minimalist design maybe could be one of her 3 points, but she doesn't have 2 others. So this happens sometimes too, where students will get one thesis that's terrific, but then they'll take another attempt and it's way off. Sadly, because this is the model, sometimes students think that's what they have to do. Create one good thesis and one that's not a thesis. No, this is a student model that's not perfect. Okay, she does a pretty good job, but she doesn't do everything perfectly. So I actually want you to take 2 attempts at coming up with thesis statements like this. And finally, the last prompt asks you for research ideas. I don't know why this happens. Maybe it's because it's too wordy, but sometimes students think that it's literally asking for them to write an essay. Your essay must incorporate research, and then they start writing an essay. No. You just have to share your research ideas for your essay. Your essay is coming later in week 3. Okay. In general, your research, we're not there yet. We're going to talk about this next week. But in general, research is going to work to support those 3 things that you've noticed. So for my G paper, I found some nifty quotations about color. from about color theory. I found a direct quotation about the ad's use of animal imagery. Okay, so here's where you'll just talk a bit about what you might research, right? Okay, so questions, comments, anything. I try to keep this to exactly an hour. We're at the hour mark right now because we started at 5 past the hour. After an hour, I tend to lose people. So we've gone over the important stuff. I apologize if I rushed a little bit toward the end there, but I think I covered everything I meant to. But yeah, your main activity is to do this, and make sure that you choose an ad that you're comfortable with. Yeah, print ads are in general more challenging than television commercials. I can tell you, I mean, choose one that you're excited to work with. I get students who are up for the challenge of choosing a print ad. Every month I get one or two students who is not scared off by the Chico, the Stork ad, and want to show off that they can handle it. I love doing print ads. I don't know. I like analyzing pure visual elements, but I will say that I think McDonald's has a lot of things going on in it. Call of Duty has a lot of things going on in it. Allstate, Salvation Army, and Apple, they're all fascinating ads as well, but they're probably a little bit more challenging than the first two. And the print ads, like I said, print ads are more challenging in general. But yeah, based on this lecture, just choose one that you, and I'm not going to leave you hanging. Okay. When I give you feedback on your worksheet, if I can see that you're struggling to come up with 3 things, I will give you a list. Like, hey, here's 7 things going on in the McDonald's ad. Okay. But I do want to see you try first, because it's best when the student can come to the ideas herself, or maybe even 2 of the 3. Like, that's what I see a lot of. They'll have 2 fantastic points, but maybe the third one isn't so great, either because it's purely descriptive or it just doesn't feel like it's analytical. And that's when I'll step in and like offer suggestions. So yeah, Anthony says, so when turning in assignments, we upload it to FSO and turn it in. You just have to upload it to turn it in. Okay, that's where I need to see the assignments. I'll turn it in. You'll click complete over on the FSO side. Okay, so when you upload an assignment to turn it in, you should go back and click complete. If you forget, that's not a big idea, but sometimes the platform has this annoying function of automatically grading assignments, so people forget to click complete, sometimes get a 0 entered, which is fine because I just replace the 0 when I grade the work, but it does make some people panic. I have to figure out how to turn that off, actually. But yeah, no, the major assignments that are due every Sunday, they just need to be uploaded to turn it in, and you're good. Yeah, Anthony, I that's why I do think the lectures are important, because people watch lectures, like I said at the beginning, don't feel lost, or rarely feel lost. And I do go over every week the assignments with some care, because again, you can't really, they seem easy, but they can't be completed just through sheer guesswork. Nor can the concept of ad analysis really be grasped. People don't watch lectures, end up handing in ad summaries or just personal opinions or personal responses, mostly just ad overview, ad summary, not ad analysis. And yeah, I want people to make that attempt, even though I know it's challenging, to really identify 3 interesting, meaningful things that are going on in an ad. Again, 3 things that the ad's creators have specifically done. Yes, thank you, William. I think the 3 samples help. Every month it's the same. Like, everybody's a little bit unsure, but then they see the Jeep ad and see how that works, and they see the convertible ad and then the Diet Coke ad, and usually by the end of the session, things click. So like the Call of Duty ad. I mean, I'll leave it to you to spot 3 things, but like, for instance, that commercialized music. Why that music? Why that song? So there's a little hint for those of you who might choose the Call of Duty ad. But yeah, have fun. Like, start looking through all these ads and try to spot 3 things now on your own. Anthony says, so on FSO, does it tell us all of our assignments, or there are other assignments we specifically look for? Other side, everything is listed on FSO. I mean, it's confusing, I know, because, okay, so for example, week one, this is just stuff you read through on your own. But the journal response, this is where you just summarize the week's reading and the week's lecture, right? Just write 2 paragraphs. The Achieve module, that's that interactive module over at McGraw-Hill. And both the readings, the assigned readings, and the Achieve module, remember we went over there, and they're all organized neatly by folder. So, but yes, everything is also listed over here, if that makes sense. Like you'll never have to go to McGraw-Hill to find out about an assignment that's not listed over here. The things, they go together. Like McGraw-Hill matches here. Yeah, you'll get it down. Like after week one, it will seem so automatic what you need to do. It's not as confusing as it sounds. Okay, any other questions? I mean, if you don't have questions, if you're comfortable with what we've gone over, you don't have to stick around. I thank you so much for attending. I will see you next week at 7 p.m. I will hang out though a little bit and answer questions if people have them. Okay, Joshua, no problem. Yeah. Shoot me some questions if you have any as they arrive. They don't have to be asked right now. Obviously, you can send me questions through the FSL platform as well. You're welcome, people. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, I think, because it looks like the questions are slowing down. So I'm going to stop the recording now.